I will never hide who I am, and I will never hide my style of music because it's what I can do. Just being me. Boricua hasta la muerte.
¿Qué tal? I'm Antonio Tijerino, host of the Fritanga podcast by the Hispanic Heritage Foundation. I'm excited to welcome you back to another episode with another trailblazing voice and soul in our cultura. We've got a true legend on the pod, someone who paved the way for so many Latino artists you know and love today. We have the queen of freestyle music and the Latina princess of R&B. We have Lisa. Born and raised in the heart of New York City's Hell's Kitchen, Lisa, alongside her crew Cult Jam, burst on the scene in the mid-'80s with those iconic Latin beats, electro-funk sounds, and that undeniable flair. Their first single, produced by Full Force, I Wonder If I Take You Home, became a certified classic, opening up the doors for the freestyle genre to a global audience. Lisa and Cult Jam weren't just about the beats, they were also about breaking barriers. They brought Latin freestyle to the mainstream, while also crossing over into the pop and R&B charts with hits like Head to Toe and Lost in Emotion. Actually, she was the first Puerto Rican and Latina artist to cross over into the pop and R&B charts. And trust me when I say they weren't stopping there. Lisa's impact went beyond music. She set fashion trends and later jumped into acting, inspiring an entire generation of young Latinas and multidisciplinary artists to fearlessly create. She also overcame a male-dominated industry, lots of naysayers, all while battling cancer. So she's not just a survivor, but a thriver, and continues to have an impact authentically as Lisa. Joining me in the conversation with Lisa is the great actress and producer and longtime friend, Judy Reyes. Join us as we take a plunge into Lisa's journey, which is like an ocean of stories and inspiration. So now, let's fritanga. Lisa, the queen of freestyle and the Latina princess of R&B. Okay, I interview a lot of cool people on this thing, and the response to you has been extraordinary. People have been going insane. So I just got a text this morning from John Leguizamo and Crazy Legs and Kevin Powell saying you're a legend and you're a great person. Add to that my 13-year-old daughter, Altita, who was playing Take You Home last night and dancing around, and I screamed, I'm interviewing her tomorrow. That's Lisa. So thanks for making me cool for a split second. And I'm also joined by another Latina force of nature, actress and producer Judy Reyes, Dominicana from the Bronx, who has been talking to me about you for years, and I could not imagine doing this interview without her, and she had to get up early. So Judy, thank you for joining us as well, and welcome Lisa.
Thank you so much. And Judy, thank you so much. It is an honor.
Oh my God, the honor is mine, for real.
I'm
We've been talking about you here in my household for weeks now, excessively, so I think we just manifested this encounter.
You are amazing, and I thank you so much, and I thank everybody. You named some names there that it's killing me because I'm a big fan, and I'm thank you. Just thank you.
I mean, it's really important to know that we don't exist without you. You know, it's a community. I mean, I think it's a community. I don't exist without John Leguizamo. His art inspired my art. I remember when I saw you the first time, when I saw Judy Torres the first time in the club, another freestyle artist who's a total legend. When I saw John Leguizamo for the first time, like, okay, I can do this. So,
This is great.
It takes balls.
It does. It really does. And you know what? Anything that I've ever done to get that name, to get that title, to open doors for my Latinos, for my Boricuas especially, I will continue to do, and I thank them all.
And you continue to do that. So, Lisa, I know there's been a very busy month for you. You don't stop, won't stop, as we used to say. You released a new salsa single and performed it at the Puerto Rican Day Parade as this year's madrina. Tell me about it, and real quick, shout out to Luis Maldonado, who helped set this up, and Tony for kicking this off for us. But please tell us what that experience must have been like as the madrina.
oh my God, an honor. Um, it was all about my culture, and to see all of us out there. There's millions of us out there just waving that flag and being proud. Being born and raised in Hell's Kitchen, Midtown Manhattan, single mom, single mom. She raised 10 of us
Yeesh.
by herself. Puerto Rican, a Puerto Rican, and everything was about culture. So to be in it that day was everything. To be honored as the madrina, I was overwhelmed.
So I want to take it back and start with a high level view of a genre that help bring into the mainstream. And this is, I definitely want Judy to weigh in on this. When people think of New York sounds, you think of hip hop, punk, doo-wop, house. It's a cultural mecca, but it's complicated in terms of being boxed into a genre, especially when you were one of the founders of that genre. So is it freestyle, or is it hip hop, Latin hip hop, or is it R&B? What are the similarities, and how did they all kind of shape the movement? So I want you to define it instead of others defining it and you.
Well, it's a combination of all. I mean, because in New York, it was about the Puerto Ricans and the blacks and the Jamaicans. We all got together and we made a style of music which was hip hop. Once the Puerto Ricans, the Latinos started to get in it and create their own style, we made this style that had a lot of Spanish guitar and the sound of it with the voice, the texture of the voice, and the lyrics became freestyle. Everybody considers it Latin hip hop. I remember it starting as freestyle because it's the music that was being played when the freestyle dancers, the hip hop boys were, with their linoleum and their shell top Adidas in the street or in the clubs, break dance and all of that. That's what was being played. That sound of music. I guess because I was the first Latina to cross it over, they considered it Latin hip hop, so that's how I got it.
Oh, I didn't know that. But I see how it became. I remember it because it just felt so Bronx to me. From the sound of the women's voice as a little nasally
Yeah,
to the 808, to the 808 drum, and it just felt so familiar,
yeah,
and then it was, I started, and it felt very Latin. And it felt like the people that I saw myself, which is ultimately what what becomes a movement when you see yourself represented, right? You hear your sound, but something new. That it's like your people. And again, for me as a aspiring artist, I wasn't sure I knew it then, but I remember when I saw your video, I heard that song, I was like, your video, and it's just like, oh my God, she's like from around the corner.
really, I
You
really was.
know? It was. I was like, oh shit. And then when I saw Judy Torres, like, she has my name. And this bitch can sing, I was just like, I felt so represented. It wasn't
Oh,
even funny.
thank
You know what I mean? And an instant fan, and the music that did what we grew up doing, which was dancing.
yes,
I grew up dancing merengue and
all of
salsa
that.
and
Yeah,
cumbia and bachata, all of that. And that's the thing that you do. It's not just for listening
yeah,
like they
absolutely,
do here in America. You know what I mean? Music is for dancing,
absolutely.
and for feeling. That's what I remembered. And then to the pride that you feel when like your song
Mm.
goes up to the top of the charts, the album. Can I just tell you that All Cried Out was my go-to karaoke song? It just took two martinis and a karaoke machine.
Thank you so much. It is. Oh wow.
But all of that, it really matters. It really matters to tell the story, to keep the history alive, there's such a culture. I'm gonna get a little political now,
Please
okay?
do.
There's such a culture of erasing things that have to do with people of color with culture. And it's really important. That's what I'm understanding. Community is what builds us, creates us. And it's really important to tell these stories, the ones that matter to us. You know what I mean?
Amen.
Which is why George Valencia and I are doing this play, Freestyle, a Love Story. And it's an absolute celebration of our movement.
So we want to tell your story here, Lisa. So we look at you like a trailblazer now, but you started at 13 years old. My daughter, I was just telling you about, Altita, is 13 and she's probably dancing to your music right now. I just can't imagine her being in that position at such a young age. It kind of freaks me out, really, to think about her and all you were surrounded by, especially in that era. And I remember having Crazy Legs on here, and he talked about being 11 or 12 and how he dealt with it. But you were a young girl, which is always going to be more difficult. Can you tell us and really get into how you actually got started and what you dealt with at a young age and how you got the name Lisa Lisa?
Well, um, being so young, I mean, I was raised by a single mom. I'm the youngest of 10, and there's 7 girls and 3 boys. And everything was done and created through music. We could be sitting down at the table to eat dinner, and music had to be played, washing dishes. The big cleaning day was Saturday, and everything had to be done to music, homework to music. I was raised on salsa. I was raised on everything Motown. I mean, my first concert was the Fania All Stars in Radio City.
Legend.
So I think because I had such a grounded mom, very religious, it took her forever to let me pluck my eyebrows. Um, she was like, "You got to follow your dreams. You got to do what you got to do." And that's that. She raised us to go, but we had to do laundry and we had to cook. We had to, she gave us little bills. We had to get our little crappy job on the side to make them little dollars, them little pennies, and help pay bills. So I think that grounding kept me humble. That's how I dealt with it, basically. Having my mother right here in my ear telling me, go clean that room. Go do something. When you're here, you're Lisa Lisa.
But what was the
Home.
process of you being? I've heard stories that you were working like a Benetton and the single was. Can you talk about how you first cut a song, or were you singing with a band, or were you singing at church? Like,
I started singing, when I was 6 years old in the church choir with my mom. She used to run the choir, and it was an all female choir in San Benito, St. Benedict's Church, which is no longer open. We were called Las Hijas de Maria, Mary's daughters. And when I saw her reaction, I sang La Ave Maria, and she was in tears. And she was like, "Wow, I didn't know you could do." I wanted to do that. I wanted to continue to do that to
mm,
people. So just sneaking out of the house, which I shouldn't have done, and she knows or did know that. And going to a lot of the, restaurants, very small Latin restaurants that had the small bands in the front corner of the restaurant and begging them, "Please, can I sing? Can I sing?" And then going to school and just getting into musical theater when I went to Julia Richmond, the talent and limited department, just throwing myself into it, and being on the corner of 50th and Broadway, with a hat on the floor with my friends that were in the school with me and singing doo-wop. That's basically how I jumped myself into it. When I was 13, I met Full Force. I went to actually a club called the Fun House because a friend of mine was telling me, "Yeah, I know this guy who's a roadie for this group, and they're producers, and they're looking for female vocalists." And I snuck in, and I met this guy, Mike Hughes, and he said, "I heard you could sing." I said, "Yeah, I could sing." So he said, "Yeah, come to this address. We're having an audition." That was the following, I think that was the Thursday. I remember that Thursday night. I got on the train and stood on that line and met the guys, was scared, and I sang for them, and they gave me a cassette, and they said, "We want you to come next week, meet us at this address, and we're going to record." And I said, "Okay." That following Tuesday, I was at the studio that night, and we recorded "Take You Home and Can You
oh
Feel
my
the Beat" in one
Lord,
night.
Oh shit.
that's crazy.
Yeah, I remember they were like,
Oh wow.
we
What
got
a story.
we got this little label called Personal Records to put "I Wonder If I Take You Home" on a compilation album called Breakdancing. And it was released overseas, and it took years for it to come back here. You know, people thought that we were a British group, and the rest is history, I
Okay,
guess.
so a couple other things. How'd you get the name Lisa Lisa?
Sure.
And also,
Oh,
please talk about like what you dealt with as a 13-year-old. I can't imagine what was around you and maintaining that innocence and those values that your mom taught you. But I mean, there are predators out there, and this is the music scene back in the day. So, and I'm sure there were other things around.
yeah. It was a boys' club. I'll tell you that. Being the only female, so young, and a Latina, they didn't focus on any of that. The way I got my name was because they never looked above my chin. So Lisa, Lisa, it was always that. And it stuck.
Wow.
It stuck. I didn't think anything of it because I was so young and all I wanted to do was sing. All I wanted to do was perform. So, being on the road, my mom, she sent my oldest brother to be my personal
Mhm.
bodyguard and guardian. And it was about getting me on the stage. And the second we were done on the stage, putting me in my hotel room and locking me in and keeping me there. It was about getting on a tour bus either right after the show or the following morning and getting to the next city to do these shows. And I had a guardian, which was my brother, who did 3 tours in the Vietnam War, mind you. So he was always
Wow.
at fatigues. Homeboy was crazy. Yeah. God bless him. I love him dearly, still to this day. And that's how it was. It was about, home growing, grounding. My mother made sure that there was somebody from home there to watch me, you know.
Familia y comunidad. So, Lisa, at what point did it stop becoming yours and ours? I'm speaking for Judy in terms of people in New York at that moment. And then it became so commercialized and mainstream. When did you feel it kind of pulling away from you in terms of what had started?
I think it was when they started playing it on the radio. We all started getting record deals and performing. We were out there doing our shows, and people started to know who these people were, who the artists were, and giving them that ground. Radio and the record label started to pull that away from us. It started making a lot of money for them, and that was that.
Can I ask a quick question too? What was it about freestyle and your and our music and the transition that didn't evolve? What do you think? Didn't evolve, past, I think, your sound specifically in the way that hip hop did, being born also in the Bronx and evolving from our community? What do you think the difference was?
I personally believe that we had radio stations here in New York that only played freestyle. A lot of it
Mm-hmm.
in other cities, in other states, they didn't have that. So it got stuck.
92
Yeah,
KTU,
yeah. We had KTU. We had Hot 97. Actually, was all
Hot
freestyle in the
97.
beginning. Yeah, so that's all they
Mm-hmm.
played. I think it stayed here in New York, and
Mm-hmm.
we weren't given that growth by record labels and radio stations moving it around. But that's okay because I personally believe that it's still a growth. It's still growing, and bits of it are being put into other artists are using it now. Today's entertainment, they're putting it out there. They're using a lot of it. If you hear radio now, our style is being put out there.
It's in everything and everywhere. And
Absolutely.
even I remember during freestyle where in the UK, a lot of the UK sound, the indie pop and indie
Yep.
rock, half of it had the freestyle
Yeah, that
sound.
dance
Hmm.
music style it started as freestyle.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah.
So, how did you keep your Latinidad as it got bigger and bigger? And shout out to Judy too, and you, and so many others, at Joe, and so many others that hold it down at the highest levels in terms of visibility and maintain that Latinidad. And Linda Ronstadt talked about having to hide her Mexican side as she became the biggest rock star in the world. And then, true to herself and to her family, she put out that Spanish album that got so much opposition from the image makers and the record companies. How did you always stay so Puerto Rican? And I know it's part of DNA, but you've stayed Puerto Rican, just like Judy
I like
stayed
that.
Dominicana.
That's right. I think it's in my blood. Boricua hasta la muerte, how I was raised and how my sound is, and staying true to what I love the most. And it's my music and what I love to do. So it's grown. I've always stayed in my style, what I can vocally put out there, just being me and staying grounded with what I love to do. I refuse to put anything out that I don't love. Okay, I will never hide who I am, and I will never hide my style of music because it's what I can do and what I think what my fans love. I personally believe is the fans are what keep us going. They're the ones who give us a stage to perform
Mm-hmm.
on. So I got to keep giving them what they want from me, and I think that's what kept me
Mm-hmm.
grounded.
What you give is authenticity, and that's why you're so true to yourself and true to who you are, and
Yes.
that's what we feed off of. So I know we talk about mental health now more openly, but growing up in the public eye and dealing with the ups and downs of the career that you were just talking about in show business, how did you deal with mental health, especially when at the age of 21 you were diagnosed with cancer? At 21, I mean, you're a symbol of resilience and pride for so many reasons, including that. How in the world did you balance your health challenges and a very public music career and then the mental health part of it, kind of holding that together?
Well, back then, yeah, back then they didn't have, a lot for it. I didn't have anybody to speak to. We didn't have 800 numbers we can call. They didn't have groups that you can go and sit down and talk about. They didn't have the medical technology and medicines that they have today. Back then, being a female, being a Latina, and so young, again, it was a boys' club, so it was difficult to talk to my people about it. So I was afraid to say anything. I kept it to myself. When I got home on a quick weekend break that I wasn't working, I found the doctor. My oncologist told me that I had ductal carcinoma and I had to go through all this chemo and radiation and all of that. But she helped me find in every city that I had to go to a doctor that would prescribe me my medication. So it looked like a Walkman, and I used to hide it under my clothes. And I would go on stage like that because I was afraid that they weren't going to let me perform, that it was going to stop, it was going to end. I was afraid. So I kept it
Mm-hmm.
moving. I didn't tell my mother for a very, very long time, but keeping her voice in my head and in my heart, she always said, press on, move on, fight the fight. That's worth fighting. And the love of what I do and the fact that there is absolutely nothing else that I see myself doing is what gave me the strength to keep it moving.
Would you say being able to sing actually helped you recover?
I absolutely do believe that. It's
Mm-hmm.
my language. Anything that
Mm-hmm.
you want to know or know about me is in my music. So if you know my music, you know me. It's my language. It's how I speak. It's how I tell my audience what I do, who I am, and what I love. So that was a major help.
I just can't imagine the physical strength and mental strength of going through all of those treatments and being up on stage performing for people. And I'm sure it was a lot of it was the energy you were giving and getting, but still, good Lord.
Mind you, I don't get me wrong. I'm human. There was a lot of times where I had no energy and I was sick, but I had to keep it moving because I loved performing. I still love performing. I still love the audience, the fans. They're the ones who gave me the strength to continue on.
Did you ever find yourself in a position where you did have to take a break though? Like take some time off?
There was two shows that I had to cancel, and boy, did I cry! Oh boy, I remember
Mm.
I had no strength. I had little hair, and my skin was very thin, and I was going through this thing with my skin, and I begged the record label to cancel this one show. And I mean, it was a meeting. They had a meeting about it. They were like, "Oh, it's a lot of money,
Wow.
and I don't understand what you're going through. Can't we give you some kind of painkiller?" And That's the fear.
Wow.
The fear in me. I wouldn't tell them I was losing my voice. And that was the only thing that allowed them to say, okay, we'll cancel this show, we'll postpone it. I had to get up in front of the audience with no voice and how I looked and say to the audience, I'm postponing this show, you know, please come back and we're gonna, give you another date. The record label was not having it.
But Lisa, the audience didn't know that you had cancer at the time, because I would imagine they
No,
would have been a
not
lot
at,
more sympathetic and understanding.
probably,
Right.
yeah, probably, but I had no strength. I remember that. Even my feet, the bottom of my feet, they were in pain. I had blisters, you know, from the
Oh,
neuropathy, I
baby.
think that's what you call it. And it was horrible. I
Oh,
could say,
God.
yeah,
It sounds fucked
it was
up.
really bad. But again,
Que fuerza.
I will, and my manager, Tony, she'll let you know. I'll fight through it. I get nervous, so scared because I want it to be perfect. So like 2 seconds before I get up on that stage, oh my God, I feel like I'm gonna throw up. That's the scare of me wanting to be perfect. I want to entertain
Mhm.
this audience because they're my everything.
Wow. And anybody listening understands when they listen to your music, what's behind the music. And those are the stories that Judy and all of us want to be able to tell here. I want to talk about identity, because as Latinos, it can be complicado, right? And I think
Yeah,
this question actually goes out to Judy as well, in terms of something that Latinos and Latinas deal with. It's complicated, right? I remember talking to Juno Diaz on this podcast, and we talked about ni de aquí ni de allá, in terms of who we are and those intersections of who we are. Can you talk about that? But I know, being born in Nicaragua and being an immigrant and growing up here, I came up here and I didn't quite belong. Then I'd go back to Nicaragua and I was the gringo. And then I'd come back here. And then all of a sudden I had to move to like rural Illinois after Civil War in Nicaragua. And now, growing up in DC, I then couldn't fit in there, even though it was still part of the United States. So we have a lot of ni de aquí ni de allá, but also a lot of de aquí y de allá. Can you talk about that sense of identity as Latinas? And I would love to hear that from both of you, especially when you're dealing with all of that at such a public level.
I never allowed that to mess with me. Born and raised in Hell's Kitchen, I was born in New York. My mom, actually, I remember being in kindergarten, and there was a classroom right next door, and my mom was in there learning English, because we always spoke Spanish in the house. The neighborhood that we were in was all Latino, okay, be it Puerto Rican, Dominican, Nicaraguan, Ecuadorian. We were all on that block, 49th Street between 10th and 11th. It was a melting pot. We were all there. The block behind us, I remember, was the all Irish
Huh.
kids. But we came together. We came together, and none of that. I think my mom showed me that we're all human. Let's get it together.
But when you went to Puerto Rico, did you feel it though? Huh.
Because my second oldest sister, she moved out there. My mom's farm is out there, and she moved out there and she got married and she took care of the farm for us. So when I got out there, everybody knew her. Everybody knew my mom's family. I didn't get much of that, I guess, because we were raised with the culture. My mom spoke nothing but Spanish in the house. So I didn't get much of that. I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. That's such a healthy, positive reaffirmation every single day from your community. I think a lot of us that go into areas that where you do feel like you don't necessarily belong, until you
Yeah,
belong a
I
little
get it.
more, and then you go somewhere else and now you got to start all over. Judy, how about you?
I didn't feel it until I literally went to college, because that's where I was out of culture. Because I, like you, my entire neighborhood was Puerto Rican, Dominican, Black,
Hmm.
and it was Central South American people. So you don't ever feel like you don't belong. Spanish was my first language. It was all about being Dominican. I aspired to everything that's on the TV because I was like a TV
What were
crackhead,
the shows, Judy,
you know,
that you were
and that involved the, oh my God, anything Aaron Spelling, Charlie's Angels,
Right?
the anything Norman Lear, Love Boat, the Bionic Woman,
Oh,
$6 Million Man. I wanted to do it and be it all, but we're not there. So I realized later that yeah, I wanted to, I aspired to be that. So in that sense, I don't ni de aquí ni de allá, because I feel completely Dominican, but I'm American. You know what I mean? And there's shame and pride to that. And the other thing, you can't really run away from it because we're dark skinned. You're dark skinned, I'm dark skinned, and the hair looks like this. There's no escaping it. So I think later on, you build the experience, the resume, the demand for you by your fans, and the same. And you don't really give a fuck,
Exactly.
because you're you and that's it. Sometimes I think I've sold out without realizing I've sold out, to get something here or there. And it doesn't really matter because nobody sees you differently necessarily. You're still who you are, and who you
Yeah.
are is the thing that continues to propel yourself in your career and represent, that people see you with such appreciation for what you've done and what you literally represent. It becomes more and more important to just be nothing but yourself,
Yes.
just for the sake of art, if nothing else.
Amen.
yeah, I love being
Yeah.
me, but it was an evolution when I was younger. But
Yeah.
at this point, there's nobody I'd rather be than me. So I've been supporting a Latino museum on the National Mall, and so has my organization, to tell our stories, including through the leadership of Estuardo Rodriguez, and John Leguizamo actually works with him very closely on this effort, Henry Munoz, Jorge Sabanillo, and others, Tony Cardenas, my tocayo on Capitol Hill, and so many others. How do you feel about having a Latino museum on the National Mall that can have a tribute to your music? I just want to get your reaction to that because you deserve to be in there. And the same thing with Judy and so many others that shape our images, our American, and tell our stories, which are American stories. So talk a little bit about the pride of having a national museum on the mall, National Mall here in Washington, D.C., and having your music and your era represented.
I'm completely honored, and I think it's about time. I think we need to let the world know that our culture was it should be held accountable for creating hip hop and because if it wasn't for the Puerto Ricans, I'm telling you, hip hop would not be, because it was the Puerto Ricans and the blacks again and the Haitians, the Jamaicans in New York that put that sound together.
We are the
We
culture.
are the culture.
We are America.
Yeah.
But what an opportunity, right? Because, I mean, there's so much to tell, there's so much to know. And I think that we're at a real disadvantage. We don't really know enough about us, each other. There's so much culture, so much cultural diversity, so much racial diversity that I think that also interferes in terms of, I think, the divide and conquer strategy that's often used, to perpetuate capitalism and all that shit, and we often get distracted because of the need, whatever personal needs, financial needs, persist within our culture. And all those, what an opportunity to address all of that, to embrace it, or to move on, or to, I guess, introduce us and our children to the magnificence that is us in terms of building this place.
And millions coming to Washington D.C. every year that now can hear our stories and understand our community better, but also our own community. My own kids can go there and learn about the ancestry and the rich contributions, whether it's building the buildings that you see around you, whether it's fighting
Yeah.
in wars, whether it's contributing in terms of healthcare and certainly in culture. But you mentioned something just now, Judy, that I think is really important, that I want to address, and I try to do it every chance I get, and we've talked about it before: racism in our community. Our activism as Latinos needs to start at our kitchen tables. The stuff I heard when I was a little
Yes.
kid, and the sexism and homophobia and racism and every anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, everything and right down to ableism. They would have nicknames for somebody that had a limp. Mira, vive en el renco. And it's terrible. And it's almost like cloaked in this cultural acceptance because, ay, sos tan gringo, that bothers you. And it's like, no, it's racism. And can you talk about, both of you have worked you're from New York. You grew up, and we talk about that beautiful connection between Black and Latino and Asian and every other community native. I mean, it's in all of us, right? So talk a little bit about how you all grew up in New York and the importance of in music and in Judy's art, to have that connection with the other minorities and other communities, including our white communities.
I would say even I grew up within Dominican culture, and all they did was pursue and celebrate whiteness, from straightening your hair to lightening, staying out of the sun, lightening your skin,
Mm.
and people like the dark. I'm a twin, and I'm a fraternal twin. My twin sister's darker than me, so they called her La Morena. So you're already identified by that and separated. And that puts a mark on you, especially when you live in the world that we live in, which is obsessed with race, even within our own cultures. We can't ignore it. We have to keep talking about it. And saying, oh, you're too sensitive is a way to avoid the subject so that things don't change. And the older we are, the more people resist the change. I mean, I think people deserve at least the respect to not be called something if they don't want to be called something. I think there's an enormous amount of levity with nicknames,
Yeah.
That I still find amusing from being from back then, but that kids today don't. And the fact is that young people are here to change everything. They're the ones who respond. They're the stubborn ones. I have a 14-year-old. They're a fucking asshole sometimes, but they make me a different person. They make me a better person. They make me confront the stuff that I'm repeating that's positive or negative, And I think that's really vital to moving forward. And yes, there's racism among Latinos. So even within the business, it's the biggest ones are the lighter ones. Even in Spanish language TV, you don't see any Black people on
I know.
Spanish language
Yeah.
TV unless they're athletes. We really have to be honest about that, the conservative nature that perpetuates all of this shit. As you said, it just has to be
And
discussed more
addressed.
than anything.
I get more open-minded the older I get, by the way. Just
Hmm.
make that clear. Lisa, talk
Hmm.
about you coming up in the music industry and being a pioneer and having to work within all of these different communities.
Yeah, I think that it was all in your face with R&B and hip hop and Latin hip hop, freestyle and pop, which I touched on each and every one of those genres. I started the first record was considered R&B, and it was released overseas, and it took about 2 years for it to be released here in the States. And being in it and realizing that my producers, who are all Black and Dominican, okay, put that sound together. I really do believe that this museum that you're putting together is going to help and is going to teach these young kids of today that need to know more about the culture, about the melting pot, about how all of us, we're all one mezcla. We're all one. And they need to see that racism is still in your face. Oh, I'm not Black. Yes, you are. Puerto Ricans were Africanos and Spaniards, Taino Indians, all of that. We were all that.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that my hero from the time I was a
Yeah.
little boy, Roberto Clemente, who you see represented here, and I had his family, actually, his sons, on this podcast and talked about what he was dealing
Beautiful.
with.
But that's the magic of someone
He's
like him
everything
too,
to
right? He was
everyone.
so Puerto Rican and so Black,
Yep.
and so and such a represent. And he represented everything that mattered to Caribbean people for the most part. It was a huge deal, and it's the one you get to that place where people forget about all of that and they stop mentioning it. My father used to say, "I'm not Black, I'm Dominican." And so even within and among cultures, we would all talk all kinds of shit until you have that one person that really makes a difference and
Yeah,
shows you
and
something
like I
new.
said, the
Yeah.
activism needs to start at our kitchen tables as children. And you got to call
Absolutely.
everyone out on it. You don't have to put
Absolutely.
up with it. What? Oh, I don't want to offend my parents or my abuelitos or my tios. And I was like, they're offending you by the stuff they're saying. All right, so you are not only a music icon, but a fashion icon. The hair, the clothes, the shoes, the flair, you rocked it all together, and it actually fit with your music. So many ladies back in the day had that Lisa hairstyle. And
Oh, I got a lot to say about
so
that.
how did you develop that style? You've said that it was accidental, but please tell us.
It was being raised in Hell's Kitchen, single mom. There was 10 of us. My mom raised 10 children by herself. The youngest. I'm the youngest of those 10. We were not well off. We didn't have much money, so I used to cut my own hair. I used to cut my own hair, and I would go to thrift stores and buy clothes there. Yeah, but I remember I was cutting, and I kept cutting, and then all of a sudden, my brother's razor was there, so I was like, okay, let me raise. I want to make it short.
Uh,
I cut one side too short. I had a bald spot.
oh my
Yeah, I
God,
did. So
Lisa,
I,
I had
I
no
let
idea.
yeah, so I let one side grow. Yeah, I was letting the hair grow to cover it. Because at first I used to put like hairspray and cover it like that, put some pelitos there to cover it. And that's how that was created. That's why the head,
So were you totally shocked? You were totally shocked when that became such a
yeah,
huge
people were like,
deal?
oh, look, he's got sort of a mullet. I was like, pero qué es un mullet? What's a mullet? I was just listening. I was just trying to cover up my accident, my mistake. And that's how that
Oh,
was
that's
created. Well, thank
hilarious.
you. If if the ladies out there, if the girls out there were recreating that hairstyle, I appreciate it. Then I guess I covered it right.
You know they were. Everybody had your hairdo. Everyone.
Oh, it was,
Even when you go some reunion shows and whatnot, and you're there, you got all the girls at least doing the look.
I remember there was a show that I did, and there was one whole section. I think it was the left side, one whole section, like 3 rows, and all the girls had the pink bandana, the hairdo, and they were trying to recreate that pink outfit that I hated so much.
With the neon?
That pink outfit, ay Dios mío, that pink outfit. My mother fought me. She fought with me. She was like, "You're gonna wear that." I was like, "I don't want to wear it." She was like, "You're gonna put that on, and you're gonna do this
Oh my
video."
God, that's
I was
hilarious.
like, "Okay," and I did it because I'm a t-shirt and jeans kind of girl, and that's how that happened.
Oh wow.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was listen, being young and again from a not well off family, I had to do what I had to do. So thrift stores, hand me downs, I created whatever I could.
But that's the brilliance of all that it became, right? That it was so you, however it was. Even when, yeah, around the way, girl, you cover up the ball spot, find a fucking Goodwill suit, or wear what your mother told you.
So, Lisa, what other artists from that era are you still in touch with? I'm always curious because my friend Luis Cardona from the Bronx said, "Man, you better shout out Frankie Cutlass."
Frankie's my boy. What? We grew up together in this era of music. In the music industry, you bump into everybody. But I went to school with people like K7 from TKA. As a matter of fact, my manager Tony was in school with me, and little Tony Marsh had a song out when she was 13. So I knew her. Of course, Judy and Brenda. I went to school with Brenda K. Star. So many of them I'm still
Oh,
friends
that's
with.
beautiful. How about the hip hop folks? Because I'm telling you, the love you got from all those people that I mentioned at the top
Wow.
that are like, "Oh, I know her." No, you all know each other.
It is a community. It definitely is a community. I mean, I was raised with
Oh,
UTFO and KRS-One. Um, my man, Big Daddy Kane, and Rakim, the God.
microphone
I
fiend.
grew up with all of them. Yeah, yes, that's
Those
it.
are just icons. Like all of you hung out together. I remember Legs told me when he first was performing, and all of a sudden he looks in the front row was Andy Warhol, Basquiat, Keith
Yeah.
Haring, and Madonna. And he didn't really know who they
Wow.
were, but they were on the front row watching him on that linoleum spin around. So, I mean, the exposure.
That was awesome. I mean, I remember meeting Madonna when I tried to sneak in. So they kept telling me, yeah, you know, you want to be a star. You gotta get that cassette. You gotta get your demo. You gotta get your voice out there. I snuck into the fun house and Jelly Bean was the DJ there. And I don't know how I did it, but I snuck into the DJ booth. Madonna was there.
No kidding.
Madonna was there. And I was like, I freaked out. I met a lot of those people. I met a lot of the artists that are, and I'm such a groupie. When I see these artists, I'm in tears, and I can I have your autograph, please? Like when I met Patti
Oh,
LaBelle, I was actually, yeah, I was
Ooh.
actually doing background vocals for that album that Full Force was producing. And they told me, okay, come on, we got to get in the studio. We got to, lay these tracks down. And I'm in there, and it's me and Cheryl Pepsi, and we're learning all the backgrounds and the chorus, and we're learning it. And she walked in. Por poco me meo encima. I was like, oh my God, I ran. I ran. I was like, oh. And she came to me and she was like, little girl, I know who you are. And she gave me a hug and
Oh,
it was
so
wow.
crazy.
so she
It was nuts.
performed at our Hispanic Heritage Awards, which will be this year at September 5th, and Judy's participated. And Lisa, we'd love to have
Wow.
you and Tony show up. But she participated 3 years ago and blew the roof off of the Kennedy Center and just walked in and just
Yeah,
was exactly who she is. I love when people are who they are. And she knows who she was when she walked
absolutely.
out on that stage. But tell
That's
me though,
right.
so here's a question for you. Who would you have loved to have done a collaboration with over the years? And who would you like to do one with now that are more current artists?
If I could bring two people back from the dead, it would be
Mm,
Celia Cruz and Tina Marie. I adored that woman. I remember it was like a couple weeks before she passed away. I was on the same stage as she. And oh my God, I was on the side of the stage in tears, and her daughter was singing background for her. I was like, oh my gosh, she was amazing. But if I could, I would do
Mm.
it with those two. And today, I want to be on a record with Cardi B, Bad Bunny,
Yeah.
Maluma.
Oh, what
Bad
a
Bunny,
great
are you listening?
idea.
Maluma.
What a great idea.
I'm putting it out there, so if anybody knows them, please let them know that I love them.
Could
Please. I
you
think that's a
imagine?
brilliant
I would
idea.
love
I
to
was
do
just
that.
listening to Cardi B
That
I
would
yesterday.
be
love her.
so hot.
Yeah.
I love her. She's
I love her too. I
girl.
love her. Talk about being so yourself
Yes, real. She is
that there's
so real.
just, yeah,
She
yeah.
is so
She's
real.
so
You're from the
real.
Bronx.
Hmm.
She's that girl
Yes,
from the
hardcore.
Bronx that said, I'm going to do this and
Hmm.
that's it. I want that.
Hmm.
I love that attitude.
I love it
So
too.
Yeah.
I
I
love it
am
too.
going to close this out with the question that we always ask because Fritanga podcast is also represented by Fritangas, which are places that you go and find comfort and community over food and culture, and you come together. And that's what we try to do through this podcast. But I do want to mention that that comfort um, during COVID, when everyone felt despair and felt isolation, music is kind of what brought us together. And you remember, it seems like we're talking about a different era, but it was actually just years ago
Yeah.
when we would listen to DJs that would just spin music and they would do it on Zooms, on Facebook Live, they would do it on TikTok,
Yeah.
and they would do it on Instagram. And your music would play, and that familiarity would just give you comfort, and you would dance in your house because you weren't allowed to be around anyone else. And I just want to tell you the comfort that I found in your music, and now to be able to have, as of last night, to know that my 13-year-old daughter Altita um, listens to your
Oh,
music
I'm so
is
honored.
pulling generations
Thank you.
together. And so here's the final question. What, and I'm going to ask both of you because I get to have my girl Judy on here. You don't even know what an extra plus this is. So, Lisa and Judy, each of you, tell me, we find comfort in a lot of different ways, in music, in food, in smells. Like when I smell that purple fabuloso that was used at some point, it makes me feel comfort. So, Um,
Oh, you know
and
what's King Pine?
and shows like there's certain shows that I just never turn off. And Judy
King
just
pie.
mentioned some of those old sitcoms and shows that we had from the day when they're on. I get comfort watching them over and over again. So tell me right now. We'll start with you, Lisa, and then bounce to Judy. Food, music, could be a canción, la abuelita ante cantaba, or it could be a song that you knew, and then also like a show that you just watch. Like my daughter during COVID would watch The Office over and over and over again. I don't even know why young people.
Wow.
That's pretty, kind of dry humor, but she would watch it. Scrubs. I actually watched Scrubs the full
Scrubs.
season and just binged it, and it just took me to a place where I felt comfort. So with that, Lisa, food, music.
Talking about scrubs. I went and got a pair of scrubs because I wanted to be you. So that just so you know that. Don't play. You were my girl. I was like, oh, Latina, she's out there. Um, I went back. I went back and I used to look on YouTube or wherever on the internet where I could find this old show that I used to watch with my mom, and it was called Que Pasa
Yeah, I remember
USA.
that show.
Oh my God,
¿Qué
yes.
pasa?
Yes.
Oh
The
my God.
Cuban family.
Yes, I love that show, and I found a lot of the episodes, and I taped them. So if I'm bootlegging,
Stephen Bauer.
forgive me. Um, just being in my kitchen and cooking with my sister, my sister-in-law, who is my sister, she is my best friend, Kayla, and we get in
What do
there
you
and we
cook?
cook, man, we cook. Oh, she cooks all her Brazilian food. Me, of course, it has to be pork chops, arroz con gandule, and pateles. I love pernil, but I love a pork chop. Can't go wrong with a pork chop. Ooh.
And what about music
Um,
that gives
and
you comfort?
musically, comfort is, that album from the Fania All
Mm.
Stars.
Oh yeah.
Yes, that album. And
Oh
my
yeah,
mother's
yeah, yeah.
favorite song that was Pedro Navaja.
Yeah.
She loved that song and anything Celia. I still have those albums here. And I went and I bought a Victrola to play those damn albums on because I gotta hear them. And
Oh yeah.
that was my comfort. But you know what we did is we started doing concerts online. We did it
Mm.
on Zoom, we did them on Facebook and Instagram, and me and Tony, we got the band together and we just started performing online.
Thank you for that.
That's
You are my
fantastic.
Thank you.
comfort. Judy, how
That's
about you?
fantastic.
Thank you.
Music, food, and a show.
Music, my husband and I, we have a couple of cocktails every now and
Yeah,
then at
yeah.
night. We start playing, we start playing, Juan Gabriel,
Oh,
Camilo Sesto,
oh,
all those old love songs that we grew up with our parents listening to. Jaco Monti.
wow.
I just came back from seeing my mother. She played Nelson Ned. All of those,
She's
Amanda Miguel.
she's going way
That's the
back.
comfort. We just start going back in the day and listen to all the boleros, all the love songs. And Tina Marie was among that stuff too with my older sister. She turned us on to Tina Marie, Luther,
Luther.
Teddy
Oh,
Pendergrass, Rick James, all of that stuff, all that late 70s, 80s. It just
yeah.
reminds me of that childhood. I just got turned on by the music. Hector Lavoe, forget it. I was
Oh,
just listening to Hector Lavoe,
el
Willie
cantante, yeah.
Colon.
Really Colón.
Yes, that takes you. There's nothing. You feel Hell's Kitchen when you hear
Hell
that. I'm
yeah.
just
Joe
saying.
Cuba and Jimmy
You know,
Savile.
you're
Yeah.
right there. You're right
Yeah.
there. You're right there. And food is like again, when I would just went back, my mom made me ensalada de bacalao. I'm like
Oh,
the only one in my family who loves that shit.
oh, I
But
love that. I
potatoes,
love.
eggs, onions, bacalao. My mother boils it to like where it's barely salty, but it is.
Yeah,
It's delicious.
I love that.
Arroz con gandule.
Yeah.
That's very comforting. Oxtail. Oh my God, oxtail. My mother makes un rabo que te lleva para el cielo. Oíste,
Yes,
olvídate. And
I'm
what was the other
telling
thing? Food,
And a
music, and
show.
what? Oh, a show. Um, yeah, all those stupid ass Aaron Spelling shows or anything Gary
Oh,
Marshall.
I love
You
those.
know, I love them, but you go back, they don't necessarily hold up, but you remember
Just those
how
theme
you
songs,
felt
The
when you watched
feeling
them.
like
of it.
the
You know what I
Yeah.
some of the
mean?
theme songs of some of those
Yeah.
shows. It and even just
Oh my God, yeah.
Good
The love boat soon will be making.
times, good times, everything. Oh my God,
Anytime you need a payment.
good time.
Yeah.
or
Or
even
the lyrics,
Sanford
forget
and
about
Son.
that.
Pa, 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 na,
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
pa, 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 na, na, na. Written.
oh, remember,
Yeah.
what was his name? Oh my God,
Who?
what's it?
Oh, Freddie Prince,
Yes,
Chico and the Man.
yes,
Man.
Chico and the Man. Chico.
Yeah. Don't be discouraged. The man, he ain't so hard
Yes.
to
What was his name that played the
understand.
theme song?
Jose
Jose
Feliciano.
Jose
Feliciano.
The great
Feliciano.
Jose
Yeah.
Feliciano.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
All right. This has been wonderful. I am just.
Thank you.
I have one more question. One more question. Salsa. Why salsa? Why now?
Ah, because why
Spent a
salsa?
whole
Why
hour
now? Is
talking
that what
about
you're
how Puerto
saying?
Rican she is. It's in her blood. Talking about the family all
Yes.
stars.
Um,
What else was she gonna do?
I've always wanted
Quick, be
I've
quick.
always wanted to do salsa, but I never settled because I didn't want to be like, oh, she's just trying, and it had to be done correct. So we found the right
Oh God.
people. This producer in Colombia that put the music together, and he sent it to me. And what better way to read to do it than to do it with my own music? So I did All Cried Out in salsa
Oh
version
my
in Spanish,
goodness.
and it's called No
Where can
I
we
Llorar
just
learn
Más.
it?
can't wait. I can't
No
wait.
Llorar
I can't wait.
it's streaming on all platforms, so please stream. It's called No Lloraré
I
Más. It's
will.
out there, and I'm recreating some more of my stuff in salsa too,
I
so
love it.
that's why.
Okay. And that's
Thank
brilliant.
you,
I
Judy,
love it
for
and
asking
thank
the
you.
Thank
question
you.
because obviously that was the greatest question in this whole podcast. Thank you both so much.
Uh,
I'm squeezed here between two
Thank you.
absolute Latina icons that represent our community in every way they can. You live it. Thank you very much for everything both of you have done for our community and how comforted we feel when we look on a screen and we see Judy. We put on music and we hear Lisa. Thank you very much.
oh,
Absolute
thank
privilege
you.
to be on this with you.